Okay, topic near and dear to my heart, mental health. Feel Good Friday. We had Feel Good Friday and wanted to talk about mental health and the challenges as survivors and caregivers. Um, so I've had some mental health things lately. I thought I was doing really good. I was doing really well. And I apparently had a silent panic attack. Um, and then when I tried to go find a therapist in my area, I couldn't find anybody that would work with me unless when I said the word trauma or I said that I was looking for panic, for anxiety kinds of things. They wanted to group me in either domestic violence, and I would say no, childhood trauma, and I would say no, or like a sexual assault kind of thing. And what I would say no, they would say, oh, we don't have anybody here that can help you. Um, then I also started hearing about something called somatic therapy, which is body and mind, but they're very few and far between. So I called a friend of mine who is a social worker, and I asked her if that's just the latest buzzword is somatic therapy. And she said sort of, but she said it's also a style, kind of like talk therapy, but they add more to it. Uh, it's kind of a combination of mindfulness and therapy. Couldn't find anybody around where I live that was doing that. So I did make an appointment with somebody at one of the offices. Finally, I got a phone call back, and when I went in and spoke to the girl, she couldn't have been all more than 24 years old. She just kept saying to me, "Well, I'm going to be a safe place for you to talk." And I kept saying, I have safe places to talk. I want to know what you're going to do for me for always being on guard. How can I move on from some of the challenges that I'm having? What tools can you give me? And she couldn't answer me, so I didn't go back to her. But I did talk to somebody in the community. I spoke to John Quick, and he was wonderful. And I do believe he comes to some of the support groups. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, he
That
makes
John.
the noon ones when he can.
Okay. So he was very helpful to me. And I think one of the biggest things he said to me, says a takeaway, was that uh, I didn't recognize how much I didn't trust my body anymore. Like I thought I knew my body. I knew what my limitations were. I knew what I could do, what I couldn't do. And when he said that, I thought, I think you're onto something with that. So I've spent some time thinking about that. But let's look at some of the things that you can do um, to deal with different events. So obviously talking, I realized in the very beginning that you have to surround yourself with positive people, non-judgmental people, people that will give you some grace when you're not having your best day. Um, Connecting um, with family and friends, your values. Think about what's important to you and what that means to you. Um, Writing down your thoughts on paper can identify when you're having some unhelpful thinking styles. So if you turned into an Eeyore, and you think everything's terrible, and you write down your thoughts for the day, and everything is, really sad, and I would think that that would be a, a, a wake up call for you. Relaxation, we all know that you need to take time for yourself, but for some people, relaxation is being in a loud, crowded space with a lot of people and lots of music. For other people, it has to be time away. So relaxation, I have found, looks different for different people. Exercise, obviously, for me, exercising outside makes a huge difference. I really have noticed it doesn't matter if I'm alone or with somebody else, but as long as I can do it outside, I feel better. Mindfulness. Aortic Hope just sponsored an 8-week mindfulness course, and it was wonderful. I gained so much from it. I really added to some of the tricks that I can use for myself, for falling asleep, for getting ready to go to a doctor's appointment. just for a stressful day. I was telling Josh earlier, the last 2 weeks have been nothing but doctor's appointments for me, and I really kind of hitting a wall with that. I was like, I just felt like that's all my life had become was doctor's appointments. But if you take a step back and use some of the mindfulness techniques that we've learned in these classes, it makes a huge difference. I also like my Calm app. I use my Calm app a lot. Even I used to pay for it, but even the free stuff now is just fine. Strengths, identifying and working towards your strengths. So finding out what works for you, it really takes a lot of looking inward. I know people tell me all the time that I need to journal, and I just, as much as I love to write and I love to read, journaling doesn't seem like the thing for me. So you have to know what works for you. Problem solve, like when I've been feeling overwhelmed with my doctor's appointments, one of the tricks that I used was um, I would take a highlighter and highlight the last week on my paper calendar. I would just highlight that whole last week of the month, and I would not, for, unless I absolutely had to, I would not schedule any doctor's appointments during that last week because I needed to know that I had a week break mentally and physically. And by doing that, I was worried that I would make people mad at me. Like, when the doctor's office calls and says, Mrs. Warner, we need you to come in, blah, blah, blah. And I say, oh, that date doesn't work for me. Nobody batted an eye. They just went on to the next date. So um, I didn't seem to be the problem that I thought it was going to be. So that was one way I problem solved feeling overwhelmed. And challenging thoughts, negative thought patterns aren't good for anybody. It is work to be optimistic. It is work to think of things in different ways. Even thinking about, I was with somebody the other day who said, I don't know, she had spinal stenosis and she was always in pain with her back, and she can't walk anymore without one of those rollating walkers or whatever. And we were talking, and then she said, but I would keep my same problems. I would never take your problems. And I didn't want her problems. So really, a lot of times it's just perspective about life. So, but be aware of your thoughts. They really can make a difference in your attitude and in your actions. So, but living in fear can do further damage to your aorta. So try to avoid unnecessary stress and worry. One of the other tricks that I find with worry is I know that they have a terrible time getting my veins. So anytime I have to, and I only have one arm because of lymphedema in this arm. So when I know that I'm coming up on an appointment that's going to require needles, some kind of stick, I don't allow myself to really worry and ruminate on it until 24 hours ahead of time. So if it comes up into my head, I'm like, oh, Tammy, that's 2 weeks away. Not allowed to think about that right now. And with enough practice, I've been able to push that out of my head. Um, it comes back and I just say, you're allowed to worry, but not right now. And that has worked for me. Then they added some positive mental health toolkit. So same kind of thing, be kind to yourself, develop some of those coping strategies, talk to other people, what works for them, see what you can adapt into your life. Being flexible and accurate in your thinking skills. You know, I know I had a pap smear came back bad like 2 weeks ago, and I had to go have it done again. And the thinking skills there. I tried to be accurate in my thinking of, we don't know if it's cancer or not. Okay, so you've had cancer before. We don't know. So I didn't let myself go. I tried to stay accurate with my thought process, if that makes sense. Building self-awareness, what works for you, what doesn't. Noticing the good things in life, like one of the good things for me is I've had my mom takes me, if my husband can't take me, my mom takes me to every appointment. So I get to spend some quality time with my mom. We usually go to lunch afterwards, and problem solving. Um, Kind of like I told you, some of the coping skills have been my problem solving skills, and they've worked for me. Uh, 9 things to schedule into your week to help you with your mental health. Um, so the mindfulness, I usually do mine either first thing in the morning when I wake up before I get out of bed. I'll just lay there for a few more minutes, think about my day, what kind of attitude I'm going to have. Do I need an attitude adjustment before I go to my doctor's appointment? The breathing, I do a lot of my calm breathing. I have a trick that I use with my hand where nobody can notice, and I just make my breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And I just use my hand when I really need to do some breathing exercises. Um, this is where the journaling comes in, the 3 good things. I've had a lot of people that I know will journal this like before you go to bed at night or first thing in the morning. 3 good things that you expect to happen or did happen that day, or 3 things that you want to achieve. Um, Rest and recovery. Like, resting is not doing nothing. Resting is recovery. And whether it's you're mentally recovering or you're physically recovering or both, it's really important to recognize that downtime is not being lazy. We've talked a lot about that in our in on the threads on our Facebook page. Activities that are important to you. This, I want to say in this one, also in activities that are not important to you, it's okay to say no to. So I've been learning to say no to things, but really engage in activities that are meaningful to you. Create lunch dates, create Facebook time with somebody, a FaceTime meeting with them. Um, Make time for those art things that you've never been able to get to do. So take time for those activities. Talking with others, obviously that's self-explanatory. The exercise we've already talked to about. Me time. Just going for a walk. I know right outside my back door I have a walking trail that goes in a complete circle around a pond, and so sometimes I'll just walk that trail. And then supporting others, which is what our group is all about. It's amazing when you talk to somebody and they can help you put things in perspective, but then something you can say can put things into perspective for them. So I hope this has given you some ideas. Mental health, I think it's something that is very much overlooked by the doctors. I think doctors are getting better about it. I know if you're like me, you don't want to burden your family about what you're thinking, or always talking about what's going on with your doctor's appointments or your medication or questions you have or concerns you have, but you'll be able to figure out who wants to honestly hear what's happening with you. So, and you can always attend our support groups. We have, I think there's like 4 different support groups that happen over the month. um, there's the support groups for the caregivers. And now we have the support group for, there's like no agenda or anything. What's it called?
Oh, it's the Thursdays Aorta Hangouts.
Aorta Hangout. Okay, I
Yeah,
couldn't get
and it seems like the rule is good news or no news is what it seems
okay,
like. So it's like
okay. Yeah,
no lamenting, no dragging the party down, but
yeah, good stuff.
this past week everybody came back with jokes to tell, right?
That's
And
funny.
so they were just like googling jokes, which I thought was pretty hilarious. They were like just like googling them right away. And they were like, "All
Well,
right,
that's
Josh,
a
it's your turn." And I was like,
that's
"Okay, well, a non-dirty joke." And that's where I got
okay.
stuck, right? Because I mean, I can't even remember the last time I told a clean joke. And so everybody was like, "You know what? I say go for it. Tell us the dirty joke." And so I had memorized this joke from like childhood. It's been with me for 30 something years. And so I tell this joke, and what's funny is like I know the punchline and it shouldn't hit the way it does, but it hits so hard every single time. It's such a good joke.
That's fun.
Yeah, so
That's
that
fun.
was pretty good. That was pretty good.